Little Horse and Big Conversation. Welcome to Little Horse and Big Conversation, where we give them their say, let the horse guide the way. Here at Little Horse and Big Conversation, we have the choice, so let's give them a voice. Here at Little Horse and Big Conversation, Little Horse and Big Conversation.
Hello and welcome to the Little Horse Big Conversation podcast. You're here with me, Ross Cooper, and my co-host Amy Mitchell. And today we have another very exciting guest lined up for everyone. With a background as a US Navy deep sea diver and underwater medical rescue specialist, a master of Pran yoga and Qi Kung, the author of Just Breathe, which has been published in no less than 15 different languages, a pioneer, expert and leading authority in the art and science of breathwork, having trained over 350,000 people at live seminars in 77 countries, please welcome the Brulé of Breathing and the Godfather of Breathwork from Breath Mastery, Dan Brulé. Dan, thank you for joining us and welcome to the podcast.
That is quite the bio. I first came across you because I read your book. And you know, it's fascinating. And I think it's one of those books that you can go back to time and time again and get more and more from it. So welcome, Dan. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Yeah. It's really interesting because obviously this is, on the surface of it, a horse podcast, but we like to talk about lots of other things, lots of things that related to it, and we talk a lot about both the horse and the human's emotional state, about the nervous system, about the way that we show up emotionally with horses, the significant impact that can have on the horse, and kind of vice versa too. And I think that's, you know, all that kind of stuff is kind of the reason why Ross and I both got interested in breathwork in the first place. Compared to your incredible expertise, my delving into it is very rudimentary, but I have to say from my own personal perspective, the short time that I've been working on it, it's made huge differences. Yeah. Which will come as no surprise to you, of course. But I think it might be interesting for people who don't know too much about you to kind of understand, like, when did breathing stop being just a physiological process for you, and kind of become more of a doorway into awareness?
Yeah, I mean, I was the kid in the first grade who was organizing breath holding competitions in the schoolyard and hyperventilating and then squeezing each other until we passed out. And, sort of a spark was lit when I was in kindergarten in Catholic school, and the priest came into our class and talked about the book of Genesis and how God took dust of the earth and formed the body of man and breathed into the nostrils of man the breath of life. I have vague memories of that, but I know I must have gotten way too animated and way too excited, because my memories of the priest pushing my shoulders down, trying to sit me in my chair, and the nun tapping me on my head, trying to calm me down. I guess there was just something I couldn't understand why everybody wasn't excited. Like, wow, God is breathing into us. Like, wow. And then I had a lot of near drowning. I had too many near drowning experiences for one person to have. I guess I was a slow learner. And then I ended up being resuscitated. I resuscitated 19 people in my life as a emergency rescue person and paramedic and so on. And then at one point I myself need to be resuscitated. So I have a unique relationship to the breath. It wasn't a decision, you know. Life just kept sticking my nose in it. I tried to do other things. I tried to pay attention to other things, but when you work in high stakes life and death situations, you're trained to breathe. I mean, the lives are at stake and millions of dollars are at stake, but everybody has their high stakes moments. What the next conversation with your teenager, and in your case, the next time you approach a horse. I was very surprised over the years learning from people who work with horses just how sensitive they are, and what they pick up, and I never quite. I'm a dog guy. I can read dogs really well, but horses, they still mystify me, Although my baby sister, I call her my baby sister, she's 55 years old now, but when she was 5 years old, she just took to horses. Our neighbor had a horse, and she just little tiny person on that big horse. I never got it. No saddle, nothing. And they listened to her, and she was walked around. I thought, God, they could kick her, they could step on her, but she had some connection, or horses related to her somehow, that I'd go and they'd walk in the other direction. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about this because I have had people at my seminars who live with horses, train horses, dressage, and own ranches and have herds of horses. So and I've been picking up bits and pieces as I go from people who are close to horses, and I'm more and more intrigued. So I'm psyched about this conversation.
Yeah.
I'm really intrigued with you saying that you've had multiple people come to your seminars who come from different equestrian backgrounds, like you say, in dressage, who, they might be pleasure riding, they might trail. How has that, how or why have they come to your seminars? What are they seeking? How's that varied? Because within certain disciplines, and I don't want to, I'm probably speaking a bit generic here, you may have a variation of what a individual person's interest would be, which sometimes is influenced by the discipline that they're in. So you've had quite a variety. So I'm really interested to hear how you may have noticed the difference there.
Yeah, well, a lot of people come just for professional understanding as well as like personal transformation. Anybody who's interested in health and wellness and self improvement, personal growth, spiritual development ends up gravitating towards breath work at some point, towards breathing. Every genuine spiritual path, ancient or modern, touches on the breath in some way. I mean, even the word inspiration, respiration, expiration, spirit is the root of that word. And um, so people come, they're after peak performance. They're in everyday stress and tensions, optimal, maximum potential, optimum health, heart connections. The breath, it's no accident. The lungs are wrapped around the heart. When you breathe, you're awakening heart intelligence, and breathing awakens body intelligence. And so for connection, spiritual connection, heart connection, just energetic connection to other people, to nature, to animals. And so it's about consciousness, it's about awareness, it's about emotional intelligence, heart intelligence. And all of those things apply to just about every aspect of life at some point or another, whether you're a powerful CEO who needs to command presence in a room, prepare for an important presentation, emotional, psychological shocks and traumas, and regulating yourself up and down, regulating emotions. So breath is like the Swiss Army knife of life. And anybody who's engaged in any kind of activity can find some way to use their breath to show up better and to perform better. So everyone, if you got a belly button, breathing is probably important to you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely agreed.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I've noticed a lot of physiological changes in myself since I've been sort of doing regular practice. But what you were saying there about the effect on the heart, I feel like that has probably made the biggest change in my connection with horses, I think, because they feel that. And I think I've always been quite, I've always had a good connection with horses and with animals. But since doing this, I feel like it's improved to a much deeper level.
Yeah, the physiology is the science around the physiology is unarguable. Carbon dioxide is a volatile acid. It's critical in our pH balance in our body, and cognitive activities are reliant on oxygen to the brain, and performing means being centered and calm and awake and alert, and having your nervous system be sort of regulated to the point that it serves you instead of constantly distracts you and interferes. And so yeah, and animals more than others are sensitive to that. We haven't developed a lot of the senses. We've given them up for higher kind of intellectual philosophical pursuits, but animals are so honed in and tuned in to that level. And the slightest, if you're relaxed versus tense, every animal feels that. If you're peaceful and calm versus excited or worried, every animal senses that. And babies sense it. When you put them in your arms, they're going to pick up whatever vibe you got happening. And animals do that naturally, automatically, all the time. And so I think horse people, it behooves them to be more conscious of their own state and regulate their own emotional and physiological state, because that's all the animals are plugged into. They're not philosophizing, they're not intellectualizing,
No,
they're
absolutely.
sensing. And so breathing is core to putting ourselves in a state where we can actually connect to horses or any and nature in general.
Yeah, yeah,
But you
absolutely.
see, in my seminars, I talk about how consciousness is so primary, because the quality or level of your consciousness is key to everything. So, like when we walk into a forest, all the animals and birds and everything, they hear us, they see us, they smell us, and they're long gone before we even know they're there, you know? And so it's like our presence interrupts nature. They were busy mating and grazing and feeding and doing their thing, and we come stumbling into the forest, and they all stop their activity. They go into their holes, they fly away, they disappear. But if you can become really still and real quiet, after a while, all that activity resumes, that natural activity resumes. And so we have to develop the kind of consciousness that doesn't disturb nature, beginning with our own nature. I mean, if you're singing naked in the shower at the top of your lungs and you suddenly discover 50 people are watching and listening, you don't sing the same tune in the next moment, You- And so that kind of judging, comparing, analyzing awareness, consciousness, it creates static, and it breaks our ability to be natural. And again, animals sense the slightest little things. And frankly, I'm a horrible horseback rider. I've been, a dozen times maybe in my life, but I'm just holding on for dear life. And I don't, and my experience is kind of like this. And so when I get off the horse, my ass is sore, his back is sore, and we're both glad the whole thing's over with, And so, but I see that as a perfect example of our relationship to the breath. Most people's relationship to the breath is like that. And when I watch a rider and a horse who are, they're like one. They've merged, and the horse feels every slight little thing, and the rider responds to every. It's beautiful what can happen when those two things really merge. The horse will do things it would never do by itself, and the human can go places and do things they could never go. So I think that it's a perfect metaphor for our relationship to the breath. If we're disconnected from the breath, if we're unconscious, if we're not aligned or aware, then the whole ride through life is just a lot more difficult than it needs to be.
The ride through
Yeah,
life, I like that.
yeah, it's fascinating. It's kind of similar in some senses. I think we get a lot of education really wrong. We learn stuff that doesn't help you to be a human being.
Yeah.
I mean, because I have a friend of mine who I teach people to trim horses' feet, and as part of the course, I have a friend of mine she's a life coach. She's also a vet. She's all sorts of things. She's all round fabulous lady. But she comes and talks to the students about kind of understanding how emotions work and working with your emotions. And I feel like that, along with this, just how to breathe, the breath, like it's so fundamental. We should all be learning. We should be developing this as kids. It should just be what we learn. And like, how many problems in life would go away if we all as human beings did this stuff and understood it?
If I would have just taken a breath before I did or said certain things in my life, I could have avoided a whole lot of problems. But yeah, and one of my teachers once said, Dan, it's who you are, not what you say or what you do, that really makes the difference. And so showing up with a regulated nervous system, showing up with an open heart, showing up in a space that's both energized and calm. I mean, the universe responds to that kind of presence, and our own soul and our own body and mind respond to that kind of, you could call it emotional energy, but I mean, emotions are just energy in motion. And so,
Exactly.
yeah. And yeah, and it's unarguable now. You breathe in a certain way and you feel a certain thing, and you don't need science to show you or prove you just, your own experience validates it. So, but thank God, science and technology, wearable technologies, all the scientific studies are showing what the ancient yogis and Taoists and Buddhists have been teaching for 3,000 years. At least now, science gives us, aha, so this is why breathing helps. This is why breathing works. We're starting to hack into and understand the neurochemistry, the brainwave states, the brain regions that light up, the kind of energy we're radiating, that's all linked and directly controlled by the breath.
I think that's really exciting because, like you say, there are so many of us which know these ancient practices work, but we know they work, but for the science to then get on board and just back that up gives it a little bit more credibility or a little bit more weight in certain circles, which helps then access those areas of what's the word I'm looking, skepticism.
Yeah, some people need that. If the doctor said it's okay. Oh, science proves this right. They've been waiting, and they kind of need that before they give themselves permission to do something. Not everybody wants to be their own scientist, but thank God we got a bunch of them out there who are now confirming and validating why. Wow, if you're not practicing breathing, you're missing some really powerful things in life.
Yeah. Because you've just touched on there, Dan, about the link between the nervous system and breathing. So for everyone listening, could you walk us through that a little bit more?
Yeah, the happy hormones, dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin, we have a pharmacy in our brain, and it's constantly producing chemicals and stuff. And the research around the vagus nerve, that's like stunning. Only this generation, like 20 years, I think maximum, up until 20 years ago, I think, scientists believed that because the vagus nerve is two main branches, it's the biggest nerve in the body. Vagus is based the same root as vagabond, it wanders everywhere. It's connected to all the vital organs and structures and so on. And so scientists, medical people thought, well, that's how the brain controls all these organs and activities. But 20 years ago, or whenever it was, recently, let's say, they discovered 80% of the signals traveling through the vagus nerve are from the body to the brain, not from the brain to the body. So really, that's how the brain is monitoring and finding out what's happening in the body and in the world around the body. So breathing activates the vagus nerve, and the way that you breathe sends certain information to the brain. So if I go through the day breathing like this, I'm exaggerating, but taking quick inhales or holding my breath, those are emergency signals, and the brain has no choice but to interpret them as, hey, there's danger, watch out, be careful. And so unconscious breathing habits are causing havoc in our neurochemistry. And so if you go through the day breathing like this, the nervous system, the amygdala, the brain has no choice but to go, wow, I must be very safe. Everything must be okay. And so, this is the principle why it's trained in special forces and first responders and elite martial artists, because your brain on one level, it's the highest part of a dumb animal, but it's limited by what information it gets, and every breath you take sends it information. So consciously breathing becomes vital, necessary at certain points. If you want to navigate certain experiences, if you want to show up and perform, then controlling your breathing, sometimes that's all it comes down to. When you're, I was trained in that, in the military and all that stuff. And when, excuse the expression, when the shit hits the fan, what can you do? You can't call your mother. You can't curl up in the fetal position and hope they're nice to you. You don't reach for your gun. You don't reach for your radio. You get a handle on your own nervous system. You get a handle on your own perception, your body. And through that, your breath. And so, and I think anyone approaching a horse for the first time or whenever, to put themselves into a beautiful state so it feels like, wow, this lovely energy is suddenly coming over the animal as you approach. They feel that, wow, and take a couple of conscious breaths that make you feel good. And the animal's going to go, whoa, yeah, that does feel good, doesn't it?
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I was really interested when reading your book, the chapter on yawning. I find that fascinating, and it like you've given me permission to yawn from your book.
I want to yawn now.
I love it. Like the whole, as you say, the whole kind of cat stretch thing. It's just fabulous, and it feels amazing.
Oh, look, I've got social permission to start yawning.
100%.
Yes.
But what I think is really interesting is where you're kind of, I think part of what you were saying, if I remember right, is that some of it is releasing blocked energy. And one of the things we often look for in horses is when we've been doing something like a bit of training with them, or some body work, or in my case, hoof trimming, and you put the foot back down on the floor, and then you look at the horse and say, okay, how does your body feel now that I've made these adjustments to your foot? And we'll stand back and watch and wait, and you can see the horse kind of mentally processing the changes. And then very often at the end of that, you'll get a little bit of a lick and chew motion, and then they yawn.
Ah, yeah. Well, animals yawn before they attack. They yawn after the fight. You watch any dog or cat after they've been laying down for even 5 minutes, they do a yoga pose and a yawn before they get moving. Nature keeps pointing it to us, but humans, for some reason, it's like impolite, it's socially unacceptable, you attract attention to yourself, it's how dare you yawn when the professor is talking. We have so much junk getting in the way of being natural, social taboos and cultural rules and stuff, and it's like we become so unnatural. The more we get up into our head, sometimes the more unnatural we become. And so coming back down into our body through the breath, now we can resonate with the rest of nature for a change, instead of dominating it and manipulating and controlling it, we become part of it. So
Yeah, it's fascinating. I feel like I'm going to play around with proactively yawning in front of the horses more.
yeah, and getting genuine pleasure from it, and
Yeah.
just a simple sigh of relief where you really take your time on the inhale, time to smell the flowers. You're sending a message to your brain that there's no emergency. Just by lengthening your inhale already, you're regulating your nervous system. And then if you exaggerate the pleasure of the sigh in a visual, audible, felt way, if not only does your own brain get the message, but so do all the other brains in the field.
It's just promoting that level of co-regulation, isn't it? Which we can't really avoid doing.
Yep, that's right. We think we're a separate entity unto ourselves, and I suppose if I could interview any of the cells in my body, they would think that they're a separate entity unto themselves, and they are. They eat on their own, they move by themselves, they communicate with other cells, they excrete waste. So yeah, each cell is a little separate entity, but all those cells come together and they form an organ. And then I think that organ thinks that it's a separate entity unto itself. My heart is not my gallbladder, is not my spleen, is not my liver, but all those organs come together and form a system, and then that system thinks it's unique and separate. But it just there's no end. We're part of the universe, we're part of the cosmos. We're as much a part of the stars and the rocks and the trees as we are ourselves, and we're one with the tiniest particle. I mean, every science just can't find any limits. You find the smallest particle, you crack it open, and you find an infinite number of smaller particles, and you go off into the universe and you find other universes, and so this is who we are. And I think the more we can breathe to kind of come home to that, the more we connect and resonate and flow and end up in the right place at the right time, and the better we are at harmonizing and connecting and communicating. So breath, opens us to our sort of expanded nature, our essential nature, and you can't fake that stuff. You can't pretend. If you can fool some of the people some of the time, as they say, but somebody who's authentic, somebody who's genuinely comfortable in their body, that's not something you can fake. And so, and the animals pick up on that, really. So, yeah.
I'm just going back to something that you said earlier, just has got me thinking a little bit. So you say you're not particularly a horse guy, but you read dogs really well. So I'm really interested how you notice if you may practice breath work around your dogs, how that affects your dogs, and vice versa. With us, with Amy talking about yawning, if you see your dogs yawn and move that energy through, how does that, in contrast, affect you?
Yeah. When we yawn, the dog yawns. I mean, so yawning is contagious, not just among humans, but across species. It's, establishing the baseline relationship, I think, with the dog is key. I mean, some dogs, I don't know, you watch them walk their dog, and the dog smells something and it pulls them over here, and it hears something and it drags them over there, and it's like, who's walking who? It's like, let's fix that. Like, let's start there, okay? Like, I'm the alpha, okay, and you're not. There. Let's end that. So then, and dogs who, you ever walk in someone's house and there's a dog on the other side, and you got to wait 5 minutes while they drag the dog into another room and close the door, and oh my God, I couldn't live with a dog like that. Or a dog you have to worry about kids around. Like, oh my God, if I would never want to have to worry. I had German Shepherds, and they're big, and even when they're playful, if they're not careful, you got a little toddler. And so our dogs, my German Shepherds were trained very early that, and they know when the baby was born, they were actually very gentle. They just know. But yeah, training. It's about training, right? And I guess the same thing comes with horses. This patience and training, and they get it. I mean, horses too. I think my German Shepherd. It's like my mind. I want to train my mind. I don't want it to be like an out of control Rottweiler. I want to tell it to sit, and it sits. I tell it to be quiet, and I'm happy it hears things before I do. And if it barks once to let me know, good. Don't just keep barking. I know already. Shut up. I get it. So I think it's about training, and what kind of relationship do you want to have? I forget her name. I think her name was Victoria, but it was 30 years ago or more. It was 1980 when I was in London, and she had all these trophies, dressage. At the time, I just got this sissy, prancy, bouncy, horsey stuff. but she spent 8, 10, 12 hours a day with that horse for years. I mean, it was like a marriage. I didn't spend that much time with my family, for God's sake. So building that relationship, it was no wonder what they could do together. So I think that's part of it, that developing an intimate relationship with your own breath allows you to develop deeper connections automatically, intuitively. There's no set rules. Oh, you should do this, do that. It's just who you are keeps showing up and forming the baseline of everything else. So I never did any real special training with my dogs. I expected them to understand what I wanted when I looked at them, and if they didn't, then I would teach them until they did. So all I had to do was look at them, and they knew it was time for this, time for that. And so, yeah, I wish I had some dog training advice, but I think mostly it was just intuitive and natural, and I didn't make a big thing out of it. But hey, I'm good friends with Caesar, the dog whisperer guy. Yeah, he befriended me on Instagram, and we started exchanging messages, and so he understands that too. How he breathes, how the dogs around him show how he shows up, his posture, how much tension in his body. It's obvious to him. So yeah, there's a lot of great connections there.
Yeah, that's very interesting stuff. Yeah, a good choice of dog. I've always had German Shepherds. I love
Oh
them.
yeah, I love them. Yeah,
Yeah. Something as well. And I think you mentioned it in your book, but I was listening to a podcast by somebody recently, and it's kind of about people who've got themselves into difficult life paths and have then kind of found some kind of a redemption. And this particular individual had some serious drug problems and had ended up, going down a pretty bad path. But he actually found that breath work got rid of his addiction.
Yeah. Oh, I can't tell you how many times somebody's gotten up from a session and said, "Wow, I've taken a lot of drugs to feel like this." Like, yeah, of course. You learn to get high naturally, and your desire and need for artificial substances just falls away. You can calm yourself down. You can wake yourself up. You can produce, blissful molecules in your brain. Breathing is it is a drug. It's the drug of life. Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah. I think people that are not aware of all of this, like,
And you can use it to interrupt patterns, right? If I'm trying to quit smoking or anything, you can intervene with the breath. take some of the charge off the desire with just a few breaths. Redirect energy, redirect attention. And so, heck yeah, I've worked a lot in the drug community over the years, and rehab centers and halfway house, people who run and manage addiction centers and treatment centers, and working right in them because it's a no-brainer. It's about behavior, right? Breathing is a behavior, and you can replace one behavior with another. Breathing is about chemistry. It's about regulating emotions. It's about managing emotional states and physical states and mental states. And so many people just surrender to the pharmaceutical company to handle all that. Keep me in a good mood, get me out of depression, calm me down, and breathwork is for people who want to take responsibility for all that stuff and not outsource it to the pharmaceutical industry or unnecessary experts and authorities over your own mind-body system. I think we should have autonomy, and we should be in charge of that stuff, and not rely on external influences to manage who we really are. But hey, sometimes it's easier for people to just pop a pill than it is to practice and do some work or do some studying. So I can't fault anybody because we all got our own way. And I'm not going to try to change anybody. But for those people who want to change, I mean, breath work, in all the 50 years I've been teaching, if there's one common denominator, who comes to breathwork? It's people who are interested in change. They're about to go through a change. They're navigating a change. They're recovering from a change, a life change, a job change, a relationship change, a health change. And breathing is like, wow, this is it. If you are navigating change, breathing is a go-to process. If you're recovering from some change, if you're about to go through a change, breathing couldn't be a better companion. So, yeah.
I think you've probably answered the question that I'm going to ask you in a minute, but why, in your experience, why do you feel that breath work being on a level so simple to introduce, you know where I'm going with this, why do you feel so many people struggle to acknowledge it?
Because that is the problem. Because it's so simple, because it's so basic, because it's literally under your nose, because we underestimate it, we overlook it. That's exactly the problem. The simplest, most basic things in life always turn out to be the most powerful, and they're the very things that we don't give any attention to because they're so simple and obvious. So that's the catch-22 situation. I mean, I teach breathing. People still roll their eyes. I mean, even as much as breath work has been the leading trend in wellness globally for over 10 years. Think about that. For over 10 years, breath work, out of all the possible modalities, has been the leading trend in wellness. And so people are waking up to it, but a lot of people still breathing. What is there? You breathe in, you breathe out. What are you talking about? Breathing, schmeathing. So, yeah, a lot of people just don't get it. And they don't get it because they haven't had an experience. They don't get it because they haven't actually just practiced for 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 breaths. Because as soon as you do that, if you're awake, if you're intelligent, if you're sensitive, you're going to go, oh my God, yeah, wow. No wonder people practice breathing. But the proof is in the pudding. And that's my job. I'm a missionary for the breath. I'll do whatever it takes to get somebody to just practice. So then they don't need me, and they don't need science, and they don't need anybody to prove it. They have their own experience, and now they're motivated to learn more, to practice more, to get better. And I've done my job. If I can slap or seduce or cajole or whatever it takes to get somebody to practice, then my job is done. I've been trying to teach something that cannot be taught, and that's what breathing is. You can't teach breathing any more than you can teach balance right? Any more than you can teach whistling. I mean, I can whistle, but how in the world can I tell anybody how to do that? It's impossible. And so breathing is like that. How do you teach something that cannot be taught and can only be learned? And that's what breathing is. Well, you tell stories, you give people things to practice, and you leave the rest up to God. And that's where I'm at with teaching breathing these days. I assume and I hope that when they show up, they're already interested. And if they're already interested, then wow, 99% of the work is done. Now all we need to do is practice a couple of things and see for yourself, where are your limits, where are your strengths, what's possible, what starts to happen inside of you when you breathe this way or that way. And then natural intelligence will take over, I think.
Yeah. It's so interesting, isn't it? It's if you like, so I'm sure there are people listening who this is a whole new concept to. If there's someone who's kind of genuinely curious about this, and you were to say, right, okay, give this a try for a week, what would you recommend would be a great technique for them to just go for it and just see, and what would you hope that they would feel and come out at the end of that week with?
I wouldn't even ask a week of them. I would say 5 minutes is enough. Yeah. So starting with the very a non-doing kind of practice, which is breath watching, just observing your breathing. That's it. How are you breathing when you're stuck in traffic? How are you breathing when you're working on a math problem? How are you breathing when you're enjoying music? How are you breathing when you're having an orgasm? How are you breathing when you're washing the dishes? How are you breathing when someone insults you? How are you breathing? Just start to notice your breath. Don't do anything to it. Don't breathe in any special way. Just become more conscious of it. That's a mindfulness practice. That's meditative awareness. That helps in every area of life. So just begin to notice your breath, watch your breath, sense your breathing, be aware of your breathing. And you don't have to breathe in any way at all. Just establish that conscious relationship to your breath. It's like vital. Consciousness is the most powerful part of us, and energy is equally the most powerful part of us. And when you focus on the breath, you're getting a handle on your energy and your consciousness. So that's it. When you get up in the morning, when you first wake up, just tune into your breath. Don't do anything to it. How is it moving? How is it coming? What does it feel like? Where does it go? What moves when you breathe? What sensations are activated? Just become more intimate, more conscious, more aware of breathing happening without even doing it. That's the start. And that's going to lead you to something. You're going to notice when you're holding your breath. You're going to notice when your breath is shallow. You're going to notice when you take these big, beautiful breaths because you're paying attention, and you'll be guided. Your intuition, your intelligence will start to inform you. And the second thing, if you're going to start to practice a technique or an exercise or breathe consciously, I would start with things that we already do naturally, like a sigh of relief. So give yourself a sigh of relief on purpose and realize that, wow, you know what it is. It's an inhale that's twice as big as normal. You create this extra stretch, and then there's a release, and you don't blow and you don't push. You just let go. That sigh of relief. One of the most recent studies out of Uberman Lab there at Stanford, cyclical sighing. Just give yourself one sigh of relief after the other. That's it. That's it. You already know what a sigh of relief is. Just make it more theatrical, make it more exaggerated, make it Shakespearean, right? and your lizard brain and your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex everything is already going, whoa, it's lighting up. Things are happening. 5 minutes of repeating a sigh of relief has more benefits than any stress, anxiety, or coping technique, any meditation technique they've studied. A simple sigh of relief. So start there and just do it on purpose. Exaggerate it, get your whole heart, mind, body, soul into every sigh of relief. Imagine something beautiful, right? Picture something wonderful. Tell yourself something powerful. So you combine that sigh of relief, a conscious, deliberate, physiological sigh, packed with juice, with imagery and movement and sound and enjoyment. Because what you get out of breath work depends on what you put into it. I think I heard it first from Eckhart Tolle, who said, if you watch a child play, they don't get joy out of what they do, they put joy into what they do. So my first instruction and main for anybody is start with a sigh of relief and put something into it. Put a lot of consciousness into it. What muscles are you using? Where does the breath touch? What does it fill? Does it fill your belly and your chest? Where does it go? What muscles, Tune into that when you're breathing in. Take your time and track the expansion side to side, front to back, top to bottom. Imagine your favorite fragrance. And now you're ready to let it go. And when you let go of the breath, let go of your jaw, let go of your shoulders, let go of whatever thought was bothering you. And in a very short time, you're going to get really good at using your breath to change your state, to balance your nervous system, to show up as a better version of yourself. Just a few breaths will do it. And I say everyone, if they do it, will feel something unarguable. They'll have a aha, they'll make an understanding, and then they should be motivated to practice more. Because once you learn one technique, you find, wow, there's a whole lot of exercises and techniques and meditations you can apply to specific situations and activities and interactions. And now you're in my world, like the unlimited, infinite potential of breath work. Show me one thing or one activity that cannot be enhanced or improved or bettered with breathing, and I challenge you, Yeah. Start with a sigh of relief. That's it. Start with a sigh of relief and get really good at it, and then start to apply the other principles: visualization, intention, affirmation, sound, movement, expression, emotion. And now you're packing every breath with juicy, powerful, creative energy, and you can change yourself and you can change your world. Do I sound like a missionary?
You do, but I love it.
And it's working. There was one thing that really stood out to me personally when I read your book, and that was the archetypal affirmations.
Right, that comes from Binny Dansby and her source process, a really wonderful breath worker. She's been doing breath work for as long as I have, 50 years or more for sure. She comes from the theater world. She's been a midwife. She's been at hundreds of births. She coaches new mothers and mothers-to-be, and just a brilliant, brilliant lady who really understands combining breathing with affirmations. And that's what you refer to, these archetypal affirmations. Really powerful. I teach her stuff at all of my seminars. I love that particular model. She really gets it. Connecting the chakras and colors and affirmations and combining it with breathing. That's a very powerful, proven way to produce behavior change and internal changes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting how it brings up those life-limiting thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it's for. I start my seminars usually with a couple of thoughts I want people to swallow. One of them is, it doesn't matter what was true about me my whole life. From this moment on, anything can be true about me, right? It doesn't matter what was true about me in the last moment. In the next moment, I can be any who, I can be anyhow. To put that into an affirmation that in your own words, to neutralize a different idea that we already all hold. And that's, oh, that's the way I am. That's my nature. It's how I've always been. No, you can be any who. You can be anyhow. You can be any way. So plant that seed, and through breathing, you can make it real. And the other thought is something I believe would be really complicated and difficult and take a long time can actually be very simple, very easy, and happen very quickly. And I think that's a really important thought to breathe into every cell of your body, because look at the war on cancer. What's that? 100 years old already, 80 years old, we've had a war on cancer, and where's it gotten us? You know, war on poverty, where's that gotten us, right? So there's something about showing up, put your whole heart, your whole mind, your whole body into something. And if you can't do it with your breath, you can't do it with anything else. Don't fool yourself. If you can't be conscious of your breathing, you can't be conscious of a sunset, for God's sakes. And so learn to do that. Next time you watch a sunset, breathe it in. Don't just look at it. Literally use your breath and take it in, and watch how that transforms your experience of a simple sunset. Or anything. If you're listening to someone, don't just listen. Breathe in the energy behind the words. If you're looking at something, don't just look at it. Breathe into it. Draw the breath. Draw it to you with the breath, and see how this awakens capacities in you, higher consciousness, more detailed, intuitive understandings, and so on. The breath is a magnificent tool for communicating, picking up energy and information. We're doing it all the time. You might as well get conscious of it and use your breath on purpose.
Yeah. When did you first start exploring that connection between the breath and spirituality?
Um,
Or how did that manifest for you to start with?
yeah, I'm in an organized, say, disciplined way. Was when I got out of the military. I mean, I learned to manage and regulate my breathing, to manage my arousal, to up regulate, down regulate. You know, when you start getting tunnel vision and you don't think your legs are going to hold you up, and I learned to control my breath, to get a handle on my breathing, to control my own emotional and mental state. But the spiritual aspect of it was sort of inherent, but not really acknowledged until I got out of the military. And I took breathing into more of the softer arts, and found that ecstatic, I could say I discovered the ecstatic nature of the breath. When I drowned, I had an equipment failure. I blacked out, and I was resuscitated in the bottom of the boat. I mean, and so when I realized I was breathing, my experience was I was breathing bubbles of light and not molecules of air. And that in itself was and they were bursting everywhere inside of me, and it was orgasmic. It was ecstatic. And I wondered where this had been my whole life. Where was this kind of elevated feeling and connection? My heart was wide open. I couldn't tell where the edges of my body left off and where the rest of the world began. And I thought, wow, where has this knowledge or this awareness been my whole life? And where is it in other people? And so, it was just forced on me that the breath was the link. It was the tool. It was the thing that brought this experience alive. We're living in an invisible world, and we're missing so much of it. You know, our senses are actually preventing more of reality than they are revealing. I mean, what I can see in the electromagnetic spectrum is a narrow slice of what's out there. And dogs hear things we don't hear, and cats see things we don't see. There's a whole universe out there that we have a narrow little peekaboo, view into, and breathing expands all that and opens us to, a greater experience of life. It's not philosophical or intellectual. It's a felt living experience, and everybody needs to have that experience, which is why I'm a missionary for the breath. So for me, it was forced on me. I learned the hard way that I'm not just breathing air, I'm breathing energy. I'm breathing life force. I'm breathing divine energy. I'm breathing God, and no matter what you want to call it. And once you have an experience like that, you can't forget, you can't go back, you can't pretend it didn't happen. And so all I could do was teach it and preach it and practice it and hope I can convince a few other people to do it.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you'll have convinced a few more to give it a try just listening to this today. Yeah, I've been kind of trying to preach this a little bit to people myself recently, saying how amazing it's been for me.
Yeah, it's too good to be true. People go, everybody's saying life changing and blah, blah, blah. It sounds so cliche,
I have a very practical example that I can now give to people. So I've always had a phobia of dentists. I find being in the dental waiting room previously, my heart rate would go up. I'd be in this like shallow breathing, just almost having a panic attack. Like the whole thing is horrific. I would need to be given some diazepam just to be able to cope with the whole situation. And I recently had to go and have a tooth extraction done, which for me would, in previous days, have been an incredibly traumatic experience. And I won't say I was looking forward to it, but I started from when I first got up in the morning through to the point when I was sat in the waiting room, just doing some breathing exercises. And then whilst I was actually in the dentist chair, I was doing box breathing and just really focusing on that. And she'd finished and said she was finished, and I hadn't even really taken on board of what she was even doing.
Yeah. That's the redirecting of attention. That's the redirecting of energy. That's the solution for everything. And you're not holding on to the chair with life. You're relaxing your hands. You're relaxing.
Yeah.
You're focusing on your breath. And life is just happening. And your relationship to it is completely different. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a good example, and it's a common one because, oh my God, who likes trips to the dentist,
I actually do like trips to the dentist.
Well, you're just weird.
I'm a bit of an oddball. I said that publicly.
Okay, I knew there's one out there.
And if there's going to be one, it would be Ross, to be fair.
Yeah. I'll own that.
Do they still give you a sticker afterwards?
Well,
is that what it is?
I asked for one.
I could say I've looked forward happily to a dentist appointment because I had a plan. I was doing so. I can kind of, I could say I enjoyed it. Okay, all right. I confess. I enjoyed it.
That's two. I like a good scale and polish. But I think what's going back to what Amy was just talking about with her example, I think knowing Amy and seeing how Amy's worked, I think the integration of breath work for Amy, I think, has changed her relationship with people and her own emotions, which I know she won't mind me saying.
No, it's very true.
But I think that has really opened up a lot of different channels for you.
Yeah.
Past the horses, which I think it does. And I think this is why there's such a cool parallel. And actually,
our inner world determines how we show up. And so, of course, you make changes in your inner world, in your inner being, and people catch it. They notice it. They respond to it. I'm not, when something happens, I'm not reacting to the thing. I'm reacting to it's my body mind system that's reacting, not me. And so once I focus on my mind body system, we have an event, we have our experience of the end, but in between, we have our reaction to it, our physical, emotional, psychological, habitual reaction. And that's what creates our experience. So breath work allows us to do this inner work, and people feel it and they sense it. And you walk into a room where the two people have just been arguing, and you can feel the energy still stuck in the air. And there are other people, they walk into the room and they have this presence, and everybody just goes, energy is a real thing. And working with our own internal energy, of course, it's going to affect everyone and everything. Yeah.
And I read something that you had written about when someone says that they're sensitive to energy, are they sensitive to the changes, or are they hypervigilant and reactive to it? And I think that's a really interesting concept for people.
Yeah, my experience is people confuse sensitivity with hyperreactivity. Just because you react to every little thing doesn't mean you're sensitive. You're hyperreactive. To be genuinely sensitive, your mind needs to be very quiet and your body needs to be very relaxed. And then you can experience genuine sensitivity. But as long as your mind is blah, 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 and your body's you can't, that's not sensitivity. That's the opposite of sensitivity. So yeah, I use the analogy of a boat. When it moves through water, the boat makes waves. And if you feel those waves, you don't say, I feel the boat, because you don't feel the boat. You're just feeling the waves that the boat makes. Well, when energy moves through the mind, it makes waves, thoughts and pictures and images and memories and words and blah, blah, blah. And you experience that and you say, I'm experiencing the energy. No, you're not. You're experiencing the waves that the energy makes when it moves through your mind. And when energy moves through the body, it causes waves, feelings, sensations, reactions, spasms, contractions. And you say, oh, I feel the energy. No, you don't. You feel the waves that the energy is making in your body. Not until the body becomes non-reactive and the mind becomes non-reactive. Now in the present moment, the genuine sensitivity is possible, is available. So yeah, that's one of the main things that I teach, because I really think there's a lot, and I attract spiritual people, and all spiritual people talk about energy. Ooh, I love the energy of this place, or oh, there's something about his energy I don't like. What the hell are they talking about? What is this energy you're talking about? You're talking about your body mind's reaction to something. We could call it energy, but maybe we need to relax, get quiet, and discover what are we really talking about here. So
I'm, I'm nearly crying at that because so many of us that are spiritual do that, but without any elaboration on what that is. It's like, oh, okay, vibes, no. And can you elaborate, please?
yeah, and that's why we're so easily fooled, because unless you dress and look like and talk like a certain whatever, people don't get that that's what you are. We're easily deceived because we respond to superficial things. I mean, if I was going to be a criminal, I would dress in a suit and tie. I mean, it just makes perfect sense to me, like look legitimate and you can get away with anything. But we've been programmed that way and we respond to those superficial cues. But there's you can tell somebody who's teaching something that they've embodied versus something they just read in a book and now they're parroting it. There's so much of that going on out there, and more in the breathing world. And so, I'm breathing teachers better be breathing. They better be practicing what they preach and not just talking about it, because it's in the practice. Concepts get you nowhere. Training gets you everywhere, especially in breath work. So,
it feels a strange thing to choose to teach if you're not embodying it yourself.
I don't think it feels strange. Interestingly, I feel that some people would go, huh, how could I make a few bucks from this?
Yeah.
What's the latest
Oh, yeah,
fad?
I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yep. Oh, I used to be able to say I've never met a breath worker I didn't like. I'm not sure I can say that today because so many people are jumped on the breathwork bandwagon. They do one day of a Wim Hof or something, and the next day they're experts, and they got 100,000 followers on TikTok, and they don't know what the heck they're talking about. But
Uh,
and so, yeah, this is one of those pure things that you have to walk your talk for people to really get it. It's not philosophical and intellectual, it's felt, it's lived, it's embodied, and that's the definition of breath work. I mean, it's an embodied practice, and there's no faking it. You can fake the expression on your face. You can put on that plastic Pan Am smile, but people know it's not really how you feel underneath. But
yeah.
most people haven't, or I can look tough like but I'm really scared shitless. We can disguise our facial expressions, our posture, our tone of voice to make a certain impression. But there are very few breathing masters on the planet. And so it's a very pure way. I don't care how you look, what you say, I'm looking at how you breathe because that's telling me everything. And whether you're aware of it or not, it's more than being naked. I mean, because every breath you take goes to every single cell in your body. And then you breathe that breath out. It touched every cell in your body. It goes out into the air, and somebody else breathes that in. I mean, breath is the most intimate contact possible. You can't wrap your arms around certain things, they're too big, but you can breathe them and embody them. So, yeah, this is, it forces people to be real. Breath work forces people to be genuine. You can't fake peace of mind. You can't fake relaxation. You can't fake love or compassion or anything. You can try, and I guess, some people can get fooled, but once you're in the presence, and I think it's the presence of our own inner compass, because honestly, today, how do you know what's true? How do you know who's telling the truth? What's real? What's not real? What really happened? What didn't happen? Who's right? Who's wrong? Because there's so much, a mass of conflicting information and evidence. If you don't have some internal North Star, if you don't have some internal connection to knowing, you're going to get pushed and pulled and fooled and tricked and manipulated by every passing ad on on YouTube. So yeah, it's vital for our times. We need to become more conscious, and it's not about being fast and strong. In the jungle and in the old days, who's fast, who's strong, that's who's going to survive. But then along came smart, and now, like, if you're smart enough, it doesn't matter how fast you are, how strong you are, you can win the day. But some of the worst things that are happening on the planet are being done by people who are very fast, very strong, and very smart. And so now and into the future, it's who's the most conscious. That's who's going to survive. Who's the most awake? Who's the most aware and conscious and present? That's what's required. And that's exactly what breathwork delivers to people. That's exactly the way to develop it. Presence and is through breath. So, yeah.
And what world it would be if we embody that as a collective.
Oh God, but people are doing it. When people get together and they breathe and they synchronize their breathing, it sends waves out onto the rest of the planet that wakes other people up, that stimulates. It's happening more and more. And thank God for breathing circles, people who get together once a week or get online and they practice breathing, they talk about breathing, they share their experience, because that's what's allowing it to grow. And that's what the world needs. And in the Course in Miracles, There's a quote in the Course in Miracles that I've always loved. It says, "A universal theology is impossible, but a universal experience is not only possible, it's necessary." And I think breathing is that universal experience. When people breathe together, they become friendly. They connect. They put aside superficial differences. It awakens something deeper in them. They can get around their particular religious or social biases or whatever, and they can connect at a real level. And so I'm not surprised that breath work is at the cutting edge of not just human potential movement, but the world peace movement. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a powerful thing, isn't it? It's a very powerful thing.
And I think it's super cool bringing this, with what you're saying about breathing circles. Amy's got a herd of horses at her track livery. But what's really, really profound, and I think horsemanship at the moment is such an exciting place to be, because horsemanship isn't just about your technical skill. It is about everything that accumulates together for you as a person and what you are taking and showing up as.
Yeah.
And a horse, you can't fool a horse. Horses know whether you're breathing or not. They know your emotional state. They know everything the minute they clock eyes on you. But going back to the breathing circles, some of the most profound and beautiful moments I've had is when I've been hanging out with a group of horses, and each one is synchronized within a level of safety, and the whole earth just spins. It stops and it spins.
Yeah. 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 There's that invisible energetic connection that communicates information, communicates emotion, and we've just gotten so civilized that we're kind of disconnected from that, and breathing reawakens that capacity in us. You end up in the right place at the right time. You say the right thing without thinking about it. You do the right thing without planning. We get into the flow. Yeah, and that's what's needed more and more in the world. People with open hearts and connecting, and that's what hopefully what all the breathing circles and seminars are about. Yeah.
Everyone's just emanating in this at the moment, aren't they?
At all the seminars, we always have some animal contact. There's cats, there's dogs, there's birds. They tune into it. They're on the windowsill. They're hanging around the building. They're coming in and laying down. They get it. Something's happening here, and I like it.
Yeah, this feels good. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And I think when people start to feel it, like really feel that connection between them and their horses and what's actually driving and influencing that, I think going back to something you were saying earlier. I think it was when we was talking about, people getting involved in breath work. I think there's a massive difference, like with most things, from people seeing it and then experiencing it. If people are experiencing that deeper connection and how breath work affects that relationship with their horses, that gives you such a profound basis to start to build everything on from.
Yeah. Yeah, that direct experience, that's it. Even I've always had, medical people who come around to breathing. Doctors who had their own personal experience, they're the ones who are really good at pitching it to their patients. Now, they're all being taught that these days because of COVID, a lot of the science and stuff. Doctors are now saying, oh, yeah, breathing exercises are good for you. But you can tell that they're just passing on the information versus when they themselves have used it and know it. And that's when people get it. It's not just that the doctor said it's okay, but wow, I get this, we get a certain feeling of confidence or something. We've been trained that, hey, if the doctor says, we're primed to really take that to be more meaningful than it is, even though, a lot of doctors have no business giving relationship advice or any kind of advice other than medical advice. But we tend to turn to them for all that other advice just routinely. I mean, I have a marketing guy, Dan Kennedy, that I practice, and people ask him about questions about life and stuff, and he goes, I don't know why you're asking me about that stuff, but it's because we've developed a comfort and a rapport and trust. And when advice comes from someone that you have a rapport and trust, it goes deep. It makes a big difference. So thank God more and more people in influential spheres are talking about breath work, and they're preaching it, they're practicing it, and they're promoting it, because that's what it takes for some people to finally do it, the right person, the right kind of person to, give a testimonial about it, and then they're all in. So, hey, the more the better. Yeah.
So as Bruce Lee, I love that. I mean, just in your book, there are so many techniques, and I'm sure that there are a massive multitude of techniques that you're aware of that are not in your book. What, in your position as the Bruce Lee of breathing, what are the techniques that you personally really enjoy?
Yeah. I like extracting the practices, the actual practices, from the rituals and the dogmas, and like let's you don't have to become a Buddhist, you don't have to become a Hindu, or Taoist to get the benefit of what they practice. So that's what's I like to preach the fundamentals. No matter what school or style or which teacher or what method, what approach, there are certain fundamentals. And if you identify them and you practice and you train in them and you put them together in your own unique way and you bring in other things that you're already good at, you're going to develop a perfect breathing method or style for yourself. And maybe it'll be good enough that it'll work for a whole lot of other people. So the fundamentals are what I started with: consciousness. How the more aware you can be of your breath, the more aware you're going to be in general in life. The more conscious you are of your breathing, the more conscious you're going to become of your posture and your reactions and your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions and the effect that your words have. So breath awareness leads to more awareness of everything. And being conscious of your breathing carries over into being conscious of many other things automatically. So that's the first thing. Just put more consciousness into your breathing, and a certain quality of curiosity, a lightness, a playfulness, not strict, stern, rigid, right, wrong, good, bad, should, shouldn't, must not that kind of input, but something more curious and exploratory and inventive and creative. So that's it, your relationship to your breath, a conscious relationship to your breath. And then you drill on the basics like speed. A healthy person should be able to breathe quickly for as long as they want and not be difficult, or breathe very slowly. Or breathe high in your chest, or breathe low in your belly. Breathe through your nose, or breathe through your mouth, right? And so just basic, you got a toolbox and you're just checking, does everything sharp? Does everything work okay? Anything need oiling? Anything, is it all working good? So just basic parameters of the breath. Getting comfortable breathing in the nose, out the mouth, in and out the nose, in one nostril, out the other. Comfortable breathing through the mouth, comfortable breathing high in the chest, comfortable breathing low in the belly. and just basic. You can just play with your breath using any of those parameters. And there are exercises and techniques, and they have names to them, ancient yogi names and scientific names and stuff. Call it what you want, combining speed, so on. The other is the intention you bring. I ask 3 questions. I don't ask them anymore. But if someone's going to practice breath work, or if I'm going to work with them, I'm looking for the answers to these questions, right? What is your level of health? Are you a frail elderly person in bed and you can't even turn over by yourself? Or are you a peak athlete? Well, that's going to tell us, where can we start? What do we focus on? What would be most useful, right? What do we practice? And the second question is, what's your degree of skill? Do you meditate? Have you practiced martial arts? Have you learned some breathing exercises? What self-improvement or personal growth methods have you experienced? So what's your degree of skill? That's going to tell me and tell you, where do you begin, which direction you go, where to look, right? And the third is, what is your purpose in training? You want to see God? Or you want to shave 2 strokes off your golf game? You want to connect better to your teenage students if you're a teacher? Or, do you just want to have more inner peace? Like, what's your purpose in training? That tells us, what do we focus on? Where do we start? Which direction we go? What do we train in? So ask yourself those questions. And then Google around. Google around my site, breathmastery.com, or go to anybody. I don't care who you go to. If you got something in mind about what you'd like to use your breath for, how you'd like to use it, then you're going to gravitate towards something. And if that doesn't work, it will lead you to the next thing that might work or will work. So we just got to explore. We got to experiment. And I got my own thing, and of course I think my thing is the best, So, but hey, whatever works for you, go for it. Whatever teacher resonates with you, start there and see where it goes. Just get your foot in the game. Stop practicing anything for any reason and see where it leads you. I hope it leads you to me. Because I love working with people who they've done a lot of work on themselves. They practice. Maybe they have their own breathing school, and I can give them 100 different ways to come at the breath they never imagined. And I've been doing this so long that it's very rare that I meet or encounter some technique or exercise that I don't know, haven't practiced, haven't heard, or so. It's not egoic. I mean, I haven't done anything else. I've never had a regular job, I've just been a fanatic about breathing, and even somebody as stupid as me after 50 years is bound to learn a thing or two. And so I think I've learned 3 or 4 things.
Probably a few more than that. I feel like if you're Bruce Lee, you probably know a few things.
Have you ever come across a breathing exercise and you've gone, that's not a breathwork exercise?
Well, it might be wrong place, wrong time, wrong application, maybe. Wow, you're breathing that way, and this is what you want to accomplish. Maybe you ought to breathe this way. So there may be misplaced, unaligned practices just out of ignorance or inexperience. That's common. And that's where wearable technologies these days comes in, and CO2 monitoring and brainwave monitoring. That's when you can really hone in and see exactly what's happening when you're breathing a certain way. There's no guesswork anymore. The ancient yogis, it took them lifetimes of trial and error. And now, in real time, with wearable technologies and sensors, we can really refine our practice and get places in days or weeks that it took the ancient Taoists and monks lifetimes to accomplish. That's one of the advantages we have living in the world we do. We can accelerate, we can cut the learning curve sharply, and get to real benefits very quickly without a lot of trial and error, or hit or miss, or luck involved. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Mm. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you, Dan. Um, and would be very happy to keep you on on for another hour and a half, but I'm suspecting that you've probably got things to be doing.
Yep, I'm gonna. I have some avocado trees and some mango trees to
Oh,
water.
oh,
I
mango
got some.
trees.
I got some fruit trees that are still young and requiring attention. I'm in Mexico here in Los Cabos, and we have an orchard and deserves a little attention today. So I'm looking forward to getting out there and getting dirty.
You
That
know,
sounds
I
good.
feel like having your own mango trees must be one of life's great
Oh,
joys.
it's a blessing.
Oh,
We have. I mean, we have. I have 15 varieties of bananas. Think
oh,
about that.
wow.
I thought a
Wow.
banana was a
Yes,
banana until I got to
Oh,
Mexico.
that's amazing. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
learned
and we
this in
have
Costa
5
Rica.
varieties of mangoes, and we have
Oh,
3 varieties of avocados. What's that?
I learned that in
so
Costa Rica, how
mangoes
many
here,
different kinds of banana there are.
yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I think for me, mangoes and pineapples, I think, are two of the
Mm.
most divine fruits. And the ones that we get in the UK imported, they're just not, it's not like being somewhere where they've just, the sunshine is in them and you get it fresh and so yeah, I've got
Yeah,
great, I've got
we
mango
just picked
expectations.
mangoes yesterday. I got a crate full over here. We're gonna slice
Wonderful.
up and put in jars because
Oh,
it's raining. It's starting to rain mangoes here, and we're
wow.
just coming into the season. The first ones, the little yellow manila ones, come first, but
Yeah.
pretty soon the Keat and the Kent and the Macheta and
Oh,
all the other varieties are going to be coming in July and August. And oh yeah,
oh,
Fantastic.
heaven, heaven.
So before we let you go collect your mangoes, Dan, which actually was the sentence that I never thought I'd be wrapping up this conversation with. Um, so over the years, has your definition of mastery changed?
oh thank you. Wow, you're psychic. I thought mastery was the end goal. But I realized beyond mastery, there's another really important skill, and that is, what's the word for it? To reduce things to their essence.
To kind of concentrate.
Yeah. There's another word, but
Distill.
there we go. Thank you.
There you
There it
go.
is. That's it. That's like not until you've achieved mastery can you actually distill things really perfectly into their essence, and that's what I'm excited about now because I'm trying to take everything I've ever written and taught and reduce it to something, but every time I do it gets bigger, so I have to cycle back around, and I realize that's the next skill, how to distill things so that people, because I tend to overwhelm people and they only want one tiny little thing. Just give me one little thing I can walk away with and they're happy. So if I'm going to give them one tiny thing, I want to make sure it's a seed that they're going to be able
Mm,
to unpack forever. So
yeah.
that thank you for that question because that's been my insight in my process is okay, so what? So mastery, so what? Now what? Well, now how do you translate that mastery into something so simple a child can pick it up and run with it and take it into whatever they need. So yeah, thanks for that.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing.
And
So
if
right now it takes me 4 days. It used to take a month. I've got it down to 4 days. I call it a breath mastery skills training. The Omega Institute is getting me to do it in 3.5 days. So at some point, I'm going to be able to reduce this to something that doesn't require, a week or a month of practice, but some intensive, immersive experience. But it's getting shorter, and that means it's more accessible to people in a busy world. I mean, if you can take a weekend off, that might be enough to change your life forever. But right now, my practitioner program, it's a year long. When I looked at my own certification process 40, 50 years ago, it was 3 years. Honestly, it took me 3 years to get to the point where I felt really confident about dealing with things that can come up in different kinds of people, and then reduced that to a year, and then reduced it to 6 months, and then reduced it to 3 months. But hopefully here in the next year or two, anybody in a very short time can dive into breath work and learn how to, I mean, actually change anything about their life. I'm excited because it's not just possible, it's likely. It's more likely than not that if you're really interested in changing something, improving something, healing something, that intention powered by the breath will make it happen. Definitely. Yeah.
Excellent. And if people are looking to find more on your work, where can they find you?
Thanks. Breathmastery.com. On Instagram, I'm at Dan Brulé Official. Those are probably the two. I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube, and if you Google breathwork, it's hard to ignore me. I'm going to bump into you. And so,
Well, all those links will be in the bio, so
Yeah.
anyone
oh,
looking
thanks.
for them
Yeah.
will be able to find them very easily. But Dan, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Pleasure is mine.
I'm
Appreciate it.
sure it will have definitely will have inspired some people to dig deeper into this. So that's
Good.
fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah, on my website, there's the main course is mastering the breath. That's and we have a whole lot of free stuff. If you subscribe to my newsletter, Breath Mastery, you're going to get every week a different breathing exercise. You're going to get articles. You're going to get books. If you're really interested, as soon as you raise your hand, you're gonna give you all that you can want. So my pleasure.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you.
thank you very much.
So thank you all very much for listening. Have no doubt you will have listened right to the end of this episode. So thank you very much for listening. We really hope you've enjoyed it. And we look forward to talking to you on the next episode of the Little Horse Big Conversation podcast.
Thanks, guys.
Ciao.